Hi everybody, this is Pippin Williamson with pippinsplugins.com, and what I'm going to do in this is going to be quite a bit different than what I usually do. Primarily in that I'm going to do a kind of a live demonstration of how to use Ajax in the WordPress admin through your WordPress plugins. The main thing that's going to be different though in this one is I'm doing it all live. I'm not using a pre-existing plugin as a reference. I don't have a second window open that has all of my code reference. So it's going to be a little bit more realistic in terms of what you might experience while you're working with Ajax, in that we're not going to get everything right the first time. We're going to build it from scratch, and we're just going to go through the process and look at all of these different steps. I don't even have a complete plugin in mind in terms of what we're going to be building here. I think maybe what we'll do is kind of build some search functionality or do something weird with Ajax. It's because it's really about demonstrating the methods that we're going to use, not the overall end result. So let's just jump in. Let's get started. This is going to be kind of lengthy. I don't know when we're going to get done, but we'll see. Um, so we have a base plugin set up right here, which is nothing more than a plain PHP file and our header information. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in an admin page. So let's define a function, and I'm going to use AAD as my main plugin prefix. So it's called AAD admin page. Just like this. And add action, admin menu, AAD admin page. All right, so we have this saved, and now let's actually go ahead and for some reason I don't have any syntax highlighting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this out and I'm going to reopen it. Sometimes my syntax highlighting goes a little funny. Okay, there we go. So let's go into our WordPress admin and let's go ahead and activate our plugin. It's not going to do anything at this point, but it'll be a little bit easier to do live coding when we have our plugin active. So let's find it, and Ajax in the WordPress admin demo. Here it is. So activate. All right, so it's active. Now, it doesn't actually do anything yet, so let's add in a settings page. Let's say AAD underscore settings equal add settings page. Now, to tell you the truth, I don't remember the parameters for add settings page, and this is very, very common. You're going to face this all the time in your coding. Just put it into Google really quickly and look at the function reference. And actually, in this case, it's actually add options page. So it's a good thing I looked it up. It's not add settings page. So let's take a look and see what the parameters are. So the first one is the title of our page. Second is the menu title. Okay, that'll get me started. So add options page, page title. We're going to localize it. So let's just call it admin Ajax demo. AAD is our text domain. And then second parameter is our menu. So let's just call it admin Ajax. AAD. The third parameter is the who can access this page. It's the capability. And I'm just going to do manage options, which is the admin capability. And now we have a slug, which we'll just call it AAD dash. Actually, let's just do admin Ajax demo. And now the last one is the function that's going to render the page. So let's call it AAD render admin. Okay, let's take a look. Go refresh our page. All right, so now we go over here to settings, and let's see, admin Ajax right there. Fantastic. Now it turns out that we actually don't have this AAD render admin function yet, so we're throwing an error. So let's go ahead and create that function. Function AAD render admin. And in here, we're just going to start in, do this. Open our PHP tags, div class equals wrap. Okay, so that's kind of the basic HTML structure for admin pages. Now let's throw in an H2, and we will just do admin Ajax demo. There are actually ways that you can pull the title of the page as defined up here, but I'm not going to worry about that for this example. We'll just do it twice. All right, so let's make sure everything's working correctly. And it's not, because I have typed my functions wrong. So AAD render admin Oh, I did ADD. There we go. Now refresh. And now we see admin Ajax demo. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're just going to add in an HTML form that's going to it's going to function as the trigger for performing our Ajax request. So we've got to do this kind of base work before we can actually get in and do what we really want to do. So we'll just call it AAD-form action equals, so we'll just call it blank method equals post. Now, technically, because we're working with Ajax, I could actually do this without doing a form. I could just do a regular HTML element. But when you're doing plugins like this, you should make them function with or without Ajax. Now, I'm actually not going to go through the process of making it work with and without Ajax, but you should know that you want to do that normally. And one of the things that you would be required to do is probably use a form element here. So let's just add in a div tag or two just for some extra markup. And now let's add an input, type equals submit, name equals AAD dash, we'll just call it submit. And value equals PHP, and we're going to do a localized string again. Then let's just call it get results, AAD. Okay, let's take a look at our page. All right, and just because this is a nice little thing that you should know about, if you add in a class equals button primary, you're going to get the nice blue WordPress button. There we go. That looks much nicer. Okay, so now what we want to do is set up the JavaScript and start thinking about what we're going to do with our Ajax and what we want to demo here. So what I'm thinking that we're going to do is when we click Get Results, we are going to simply pull in the latest 5 posts from posts, movies, downloads, something like that. So it's not going to be super useful, but it's going to demonstrate really well what we can do here. So let's do that. Let's just pull in the latest 5 posts. So what we want to do now is set up a function to load up some JavaScript. So we'll do function AAD load scripts. And this function is going to get a parameter called hook, add action, admin, on queue scripts, AAD load scripts, just like that. Okay, now it actually appears that my syntax highlighting has screwed up again. Oh well, not really a big deal. That's fine. So anyway, so this hook, because we have this up here, we can actually use that to, actually as soon as we do this, global, there. So we can actually use that same thing, global AAD settings, to know when we're on this settings page. So now we can just say if hook is not equal to AAD settings, return. We don't want to go any further. And I'm going to do the same thing. This is really annoying. I don't know why my syntax highlighting is screwing up, but it is. So I'm just reopening the file. Okay, so now let's on-queue our file, our script. So wp on-queue script. And we'll just call it AAD-Ajax. And the path to it is, we'll have to, I always forget what this is, but if we look at the plugins dir URL function, it will actually allow us to retrieve the URL to the current file. So gets the URL with trailing slash for the plugin, file pass. Okay, so if we just do this, plugin dir URL /js /aad-ajax.js. And let's pass in an array of jQuery because it's going to require jQuery. And that's it. Now let's go create that file. So we're going to start with jQuery document ready and function. This is just a very standard setup for a JavaScript file. Create a folder, call it JS, and now in here we'll call it aad-ajax.js. Okay, so we have our file, and now let's go make sure that it's loading. So let's go back over here to our admin page, and it's not. So let's do this. I think I need to pass in a parameter called file. I think that'll make it work. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now let's just make sure that that's loading aad-ajax, and there it is. Fantastic. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to actually throw in some JavaScript into this file to actually interpret when this is clicked. Because if you look at this now, when we click get results, it simply reloads the page. So we're going to go to this file, and let's actually grab the ID of this function or this form. So let's say .submit function. So what we're going to do now is we're going to return false at the bottom just to stop the default action. And now we're going to do an alert test. This is something that I will do a lot of times when working with JavaScript just to make sure that my JavaScript is running correctly. Because sometimes you might write a lot of JavaScript and then it doesn't work and you can't figure out why. Well, the first thing you should make sure is that the JavaScript is working itself. And there it is. So we see test. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to use the jQuery post function to actually send information to the server. And let's go take a look at that function. Let's just do jQuery post. And here it is. So we can see all of the parameters for this. And here it is. So here's a quick example. Let's just copy and paste this. Fix up our indentation. Okay, so now we can see this is just simply posting to this URL. And actually, let's expand that just a little bit more. Let's take, that'll work. Okay, so what we need to do now is actually add in a variable. Actually, I'm not super familiar with this one. So actually, here's what I'm going to do. This is something that I do a lot of times, is I will actually go back to a previous plugin that I've written that uses whatever method I'm trying to do, and just take a look at how I did it. Because a lot of times, you won't really remember how you did it or the exact way that it works. So you need to go and look at something else. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to just simply copy our Ajax request. This is one from Easy Digital Downloads. And there it is. All right, so this basically gives me what I need to know in terms of the way that it works. And I can actually, let's get rid of that stuff. I'll explain all that in a moment, how this works. Okay. Action, AAD, get results. Okay, so the way that this works essentially is we have a function. We have a data object that contains the information that we're sending to the server, and then we have a URL that we're going to send this to. And in this case, it's going to be the Ajax URL. Now, because we are in the WordPress admin, and when I say the WordPress, the Ajax URL, let me show you what I actually mean. If you go to the WordPress source and you go to wp-admin.php or the wp admin folder, there's a file called admin-ajax.php. This is the file responsible for processing Ajax requests inside of WordPress. So what we need to, we actually can use that for processing our own Ajax request, and it's what you should be using. Now, inside of the WordPress admin, there is a global JavaScript variable called Ajax URL, and it actually points to that file, and that's what we're always going to use inside of the WordPress admin. If you're doing this on the front end of the site, not on the WordPress admin, then you actually need to grab the URL to this file and pass it to your script using WP localize script. Okay, so this is my shell Ajax post request. And so I simply have post, the URL I'm sending it to, the data that I'm sending, and then the function that I'm going to run when this is successful. Now, what is the data? The data is all of the information I want to send to the server. In this case, you can think of it, okay, you have a form element here, an HTML form, and any input that you place in here is going to have something called a name attribute. And that name is the way that you reference it in PHP. So since this is a post method form, any information that we submit in here is going to be accessible through the global post variable or the super global post variable. That's essentially what this is. This is setting up our post variables that we can use in our PHP. So the first one is action, and this is absolutely required. This right here, absolutely must be called action, and this can be whatever you want. And so this is the name, and this is the value, or the key and the value. So I want to demo that to you, and the way that we're going to do that is this. We're going to go alert response. So let's see what happens when we first do this. Let's go back over here to our admin, and let's click get results. Actually, nothing happened because there is probably an error in my JavaScript. And sure enough, here it is. Unexpected token return. So let's see, where is that? Why is that there? And like I said, this is something you're going to run into a lot. And here it is. It's actually because there's a missing parenthesis and semicolon. So now we refresh and we click get results. And we get 0. So what we did is we alerted the response from the server. And the server sent us 0. What in the world does 0 mean? Well, and actually I've shown this before in one of my podcasts about plugin thoughts, and here's what it means. Let's open up the core WordPress Ajax file. And the first thing you'll see is that there are a variety of times when this file will die and show the message 0. Well, the first case is if the action variable is empty. Well, in this case, our action variable isn't empty, so that's not it. So let's just do a search, and let's find each time that we die. Well, here's the next one down here at the very bottom. And this basically dies if we never have an action registered. So the way that this Ajax function this file works, is it looks for this right here. And it says do action, WP Ajax, then whatever that action is set to. So in this case, it's going to be looking for do action, AAD, get results. Well, we first try to do WP Ajax here, and then we try to do WP Ajax no priv if we're not logged in. And if neither one of those run, we die with 0. So what that means is inside of our PHP, we can do this. This is pretty cool. Function, AAD, process, Ajax. Add action, WP Ajax, underscore, AAD, get results. The second parameter is the name of our function that's going to process it. Like that. Now note that this is identical to this. So now let's go run it and see what happens. Get results. Still says 0. Well, it says 0 because this die is going to run unless we previously exit out and die ourselves. So inside of our function, anytime you're processing Ajax, you absolutely must die at the very end. If you don't, you're going to get that 0 response. So here's what we can do now. Echo, this is my response. And check this out. Let's reload this and click get results. This is my response. So I have now echoed out this in my PHP, and it's getting interpreted in my jQuery. That's pretty cool if you ask me. So we can now actually expand this a lot to do what we want. Now, I mentioned a little bit ago that I think what we're going to do is inside of our admin, we're going to go and retrieve the latest 5 posts. So for me, actually, that just includes Hello World. So instead, let's go get the latest, well, I guess we'll get 2. We'll get 2 downloads because that's all I have in here. So inside of our admin page, we're going to go and retrieve those downloads. And then what we're going to do is on this page, when we click get results, we're going to show the results here. So we're going to say like the download title, maybe the ID, and the permalink to it. Something like that. So how do we go about doing that? Well, first of all, inside of our HTML, we should set up a container for those results to be displayed. So let's do div ID equals AAD results. And now, inside of our jQuery, let's get rid of alert. And now let's say AAD results, HTML, response. Let's see what happens when we do this. Get results. This is my response. Now, that worked actually really well. I will tell you that this is not exactly how we're going to do it. We're going to change it out because this will not work when we start throwing back a whole bunch of data. But we will pretend it does for now. Actually, that's not entirely true. It might work. So let's try it out. Just to make sure, let's add in some HTML here. Get results. Try this again. Get results. Okay, and actually, in fact, that did work. Sometimes, if you are returning arrays of data or a whole bunch of different data, you're going to actually want to encode your data using the JSON encode function. And then what you'll end up having to do is inside of this, instead of using post, you'll actually have to pass a data type as JSON. But we're not going to worry about that for now. We might do that a little bit later. So for now, we're just doing AAD results, HTML, response. So whatever comes back from the server. So now let's do this. Let's set up a query. Actually, yeah, no, let's go and do the query first. We'll talk about doing security and nonces here in a few minutes. So let's just say downloads equal get post array post type goes to download and say post per page goes to 5. We don't have 5 of them, but we'll just pretend that there's a maximum of 5. So now if downloads else and if. So if there are no downloads, we're going to echo out this. No results found. AAD. So let's test that real quickly. Let's just do get results. Okay, we don't see anything. Now let's change our post type to downloads with an S. And now we get no results found because there are none in there. So we know that our query is now working. And now we can simply output some HTML for these downloads. Echo UL, echo, closing UL. For each downloads as download, echo, get the title, download ID, and let's just stay with that for now. Let's see what happens. Get results, another download, Simple Notices Pro. Check that out. So we have now live done a query to retrieve a custom post type from the database and display the results. Now let's go a little bit further and let's add in a permalink. href equals get permalink download ID view download AAD. I'm kind of getting off of my screen. Okay, let's see how that looks. There we go. Now view download. So we can open that in a new tab, and there's our download. Cool. Okay, so now there's a couple other things that we can do. One thing that's a really good practice to do is anytime you're doing stuff with Ajax, I'm on a local host, so this is really fast. But let's say that you're not on a local host. If you're on a live server, you might not see the results when you first get results. So you might click it 3 or 4 times. Well, if you click it 3 or 4 times, it's actually going to process that request that many times. So one of the things that we can do is add in an Ajax indicator. So let's do this first. Let's go over to post. And one thing that I'm always an advocate for is using stuff included into WordPress core. And one of the nice things included in WordPress core is a nice Ajax indicator. So you'll see right here, when we do a search, we are going to see an indicator that says it's loading. There it is. Actually, I guess it's over here on this side. So let's inspect element, and let's find our image. And here it is. image class is waiting, and then here's the source for it. So I'm just going to copy this link address, and now up here, let's put it right here, image source equals. Now I'm going to fix that in just a moment because that's obviously a terrible source because it's only going to work on local, but just to show you. And now let's see what happens. Let's go back over here. Okay, so now we have our spinner. So by default, we should actually add in style equals display none because we don't want to show any except for when we're looking for it. And let's fix this really quickly. So we'll do PHP echo admin URL. There, that should work. Oh, whoops. All right, I'll have to fix that. Combined my input element with my image. That's not good. So there we go. Now it looks better. Okay, now we need to fix our display none because apparently I can't type. There we go. Okay, so now what we can do is go in here and let's actually give this an ID. ID equals AAD loading. So now inside of our JavaScript, we're going to go in here and say, when we click on the button, show the loader. Now, after the loader is finished, or after the results are back, hide. It's just a really, really simple way to show an Ajax loader. So we see it for a second, and then it's gone. It just helps to give a little bit of feedback and make sure that your user knows that something is happening. Now, you should actually let's do this as well. Another thing that you can do is actually disable the submit button until the results are done. And let's go ahead and do that. So let's add an ID number or an ID to our submit, and we'll call it AAD underscore submit. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to completely disable this input field until our Ajax results are done. Dot attribute disabled true. Now we'll take this, and after it's done, we'll set that to false. Let's take a look. And you'll notice actually that in between, I can't click on it again because it's already disabled. And you'll see that down here in the source, watch down there, and you'll see it goes to disabled. So that's good because we actually don't want to process our request too quickly. We don't want to process multiple requests. So now what we need to do is we need to go a step further. We have a major problem here. And the major problem is security. Anytime you're doing these kind of requests, you should always use nonce fields. Now, if you're not familiar with nonce fields, here's where you need to go. Type in WordPress nonce. And here it is. In the codex, there's a page all about WordPress nonces. And it explains exactly what nonces are. And basically, they're ways to ensure that stuff only happens when it's supposed to happen and when it's authorized to happen. So the way that this works is we're going to go in here and we are going to first use WP localize script. First parameter is the name of our script that we've passed up above. The second is the name of an object that's going to be available in our JavaScript. Oh, and if you're not really sure about localized script, I just did a tutorial recently called Use WP Localized Script. It's awesome. So go read that if you're not familiar with it. And then the third parameter is an array of the stuff that we want to pass and make available to our JavaScript. And we're going to call it AAD nonce goes to WP create nonce AAD dash nonce. Just like that. So let's see what happens here. Let's refresh our page and let's go view our source. Now, if we scroll down, you'll see that we have this data right here. var AAD vars equals an object AAD nonce, and then we have this string of characters. So this is now available to our jQuery. So let's go in here and let's pass another field. So let's say nonce, or we'll call it AAD nonce, equals AAD vars. Let's see, what did I call it? I called it AAD nonce. AAD nonce. Just like that. So now this is going to be available inside of here. So now what we can do is say if is, actually let's do if not is set post AAD nonce return. And just to demonstrate this, I'm actually going to mislabel this. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to refresh, click get results, and you notice it says 0. Okay, well it says 0 because we actually have this return here, and when that return happens, it causes this to echo. So instead, let's do, we can do die permissions check failed. Let's see what that does. Get results. Permission check failed. So we will never actually see this when running our Ajax. But if someone tries to process these same Ajax requests without using the nonce field, they're not gonna be able to succeed. They're gonna get a message that says permissions check failed. So we're gonna do that, and then say or not WP verify nonce. And I always forget the order of these. There's 2 parameters, so we're gonna go look them up. Verify nonce. So the first parameter is the nonce, the second one is the action. Okay, so the first parameter is the nonce that we created here, AAD nonce. And the second parameter is our post field, post AAD nonce. So now, if either one of these doesn't verify, we're not going to be able to proceed. Let's try this again. Click get results, and you'll see it still says that. Well, that's because I forgot to rename this. Save it, refresh, get results. And we still get permission check failed. So I think that's actually because I have these swapped. I always get these backwards. For some reason, I can't ever remember which order they go in. So let's try this now. Get results. There we go. Okay, so the first parameter is the post field that contains your nonce. It could be a get field as well. And then the second is the actual name of your nonce that you used in WP create nonce. Now I'll tell you, there's actually another way that you can do this called verify admin referrer, I believe. Check admin referrer. And this is the way that a lot of times they say you should do it with Ajax. As far as I know, there's really no difference between using this and using WP verify nonce. If someone can correct me on that, that would be fantastic. But I know ultimately I think they both achieve basically the same thing. Okay, so what we've just done now is we have actually drastically boosted the security of our field. Now, you might be asking, well, what's so harmful about letting other people get in here and possibly do this outside of our function? Well, in this case, nothing. But if you're doing a lot of data manipulation or storing data in the database, if you're not properly checking for security and things like that, it's actually it's much easier for people to inject data inside of your queries if you're not protecting against them. So this nonce field is one of the ways that we help make sure that stuff we're doing only happens when we want to do it, and that other people don't get in there as well. It's also a way to make sure that you don't cause a conflict with another plugin. Let's say, for example, you have another plugin running Ajax and they're in the admin. Well, if they also post something, if they post this AAD get results, your function is going to run even though it's not supposed to. Well, one of the ways that we make sure that our function only runs when we request it is if our specific nonce field validates. Because if our nonce doesn't validate, it's not going to run. So that's one of the other reasons to use it as well, is to help prevent conflicts. So that's pretty cool. We've actually done quite a lot right here. And this should give you a really good idea of how to work with Ajax inside of the WordPress admin. It's really simple, is what it comes down to it. If you are watching this and you think, oh, this is really advanced, take a step back and break it into sections. So first we have, very standard, our WordPress admin page, whatever it is. Second, we have a function that loads our script. That's all it does. It loads in our custom jQuery. And if we're doing things correctly, we've also made sure that it only loads on our particular settings page. Then we have a PHP function that processes our request. And this function is no different than if you were doing this without Ajax. If you don't believe me, give it a try. Basically, add in the form elements up here necessary to process this request and see what happens. And you'll note that it's actually almost identical. So this function will work with or without Ajax. And then inside of your jQuery, it's just a simple post function to the admin Ajax URL with an action. That's all it is at its very basics. You can expand it to be much, much more complex and do a lot more than this. But this right here should get you a really good idea of how to get started. Like I said, I mean, you can go so much further than this. Here's a basic example that you could do. You could actually, instead of doing just get results, you could pass in a couple of checkboxes here to say, what categories do you want? What tags do you want? Do you want to actually do a search? Enter your search query. And then when you get results, you will detect the values of each of those fields in your jQuery, send them to your PHP, and then do a post query based upon that information. But we're going to keep it really simple for now. So let me know if you have questions. If this is your first time working with Ajax and this helps you and you get your first successful Ajax in your WordPress plugin, fantastic. If it just gives you a little bit better of an understanding, also fantastic. If you're completely confused out of your mind, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you and walk you through what you need to do to help clear up any confusion. Thanks for watching.